You go to bed with a gut that looks like it belongs to someone who eats twice what you eat. You wake up and it is slightly flatter, but by noon the bloat is back, and by evening your midsection feels like it has inflated from the inside. You have tried eating less at dinner. You have tried cutting beer. You have tried planks, sit-ups, and running. None of it made that stubborn layer around your middle move even slightly. The frustrating truth is that gut fat after 40 does not respond to the same strategies that worked at 28. It is not responding to the same rules because it is not being driven by the same forces. What is actually keeping that fat locked in place has almost everything to do with what happens inside your body between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., a window when most men are doing exactly the things that prevent their body from burning a single gram of abdominal fat. The body does not shut down during sleep. It shifts into a completely different operating mode. During the deepest phases of sleep, which typically occur in the first half of the night, the body releases its highest concentrations of growth hormone. In an adult male body, growth hormone is the primary signal for fat mobilization, tissue repair, and cellular recovery. It tells fat cells to open up and release stored energy, particularly from visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that wraps around the organs and gives the gut its hard, rounded shape. Visceral fat is metabolically active. It responds directly to hormonal signals, which means it can be released efficiently, but only under the right conditions. The problem is that growth hormone can only do its job when insulin is low. Insulin and growth hormone operate on opposite schedules. When insulin is elevated, growth hormone is suppressed. The body cannot simultaneously store energy and release it. So the most critical factor in overnight fat burning is not what you ate during the day, but how low your insulin is when you fall asleep. Eating dinner late is the most common way men over 40 sabotage this entire system. A meal at 8:30 or 9 p.m., especially one heavy in carbohydrates, keeps insulin elevated for 2 to 3 hours. Going to bed at 10:30 p.m. means insulin is still circulating when the body attempts to enter deep sleep and trigger the growth hormone pulse. The pulse is blunted or absent. Instead of a night spent mobilizing belly fat and repairing tissue, the body spends the night in a metabolic holding pattern, neither storing nor releasing, simply maintaining. Do this 5 or 6 nights a week for years and the gut becomes permanent. No amount of daytime dieting compensates for a growth hormone window that never opens. This is the single most important concept for understanding why gut fat after 40 is so different from fat at 25. The body has a built-in fat mobilization system that runs every night, automatically, for free. But it requires specific hormonal conditions to activate. Most men over 40 are unwittingly preventing those conditions from forming, night after night, through habits that seem completely unrelated to their belly. But insulin timing is only half of the equation. The other half is cortisol. In a well-functioning body, cortisol follows a 24-hour rhythm. It peaks in the early morning to help you wake up and drops steadily throughout the day, reaching its lowest point around midnight. This drop is what allows melatonin to rise, sleep to deepen, and growth hormone to surge. After 40, this rhythm frequently breaks down. Cortisol stays elevated into the evening because of chronic stress, poor sleep habits, and the cumulative effect of years of high-demand living. When cortisol is still high at bedtime, melatonin cannot rise properly, sleep stays shallow, and growth hormone never reaches the levels needed to mobilize fat. If you feel wired at 10 p.m. but destroyed at 7 a.m., your cortisol rhythm has likely inverted, and that inversion is why your gut stays no matter what you do during the day. This is also why the standard advice to sleep more misses the point entirely. You can spend 8 hours in bed and still not get the hormonal benefit of sleep if the architecture of your sleep is wrong. Shallow, fragmented sleep without proper cortisol melatonin cycling does not produce the growth hormone surge that drives overnight fat mobilization. The goal is not more sleep in terms of hours. The goal is deeper sleep in terms of hormonal output. Here is the protocol. It starts with your last meal. Finish eating at least 3 hours before you plan to be in bed. If you sleep at 10:30, your last bite should be no later than 7:30. Make that last meal protein heavy with vegetables and fat, and keep refined carbohydrates and sugar low. A piece of grilled steak or chicken with roasted broccoli and olive oil. Not pasta, not a sandwich, not cereal. The protein provides amino acids the body uses for overnight repair. The fat slows gastric emptying and stabilizes blood sugar. The low carbohydrate load ensures insulin drops to baseline well before the sleep window opens. If hunger hits between dinner and bed, which happens during the first week of adjusting, a small amount of fat and protein can bridge the gap without spiking insulin. A tablespoon of almond butter, a few slices of turkey, a handful of macadamia nuts. What you want to avoid is anything that triggers a significant blood sugar response. Fruit juice, crackers, chips, anything sweet. These will reset the insulin clock and shut the growth hormone window before it had a chance to open. Once the meal window is closed, the next priority is bringing cortisol down deliberately. The body does not drop cortisol on its own after a high-stress day. It needs a signal. The most effective signal is activating the parasympathetic nervous system. A simple method: controlled breathing at a 4-4-6 pattern. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 6 counts. Do this for 5 minutes, lying down or sitting. The extended exhale stimulates the vagus nerve, which directly lowers cortisol and heart rate. This is not a relaxation technique in the vague sense. It is a physiological input that produces a measurable hormonal output. 5 minutes is enough to shift the nervous system from sympathetic, fight or flight, to parasympathetic, rest and repair. If you find your mind still racing after the breathing exercise, try extending the exhale to 8 counts while keeping the inhale at 4. The longer the exhale relative to the inhale, the stronger the vagal stimulation. Some men find that combining this breathing with a body scan, systematically relaxing muscles from feet to head, deepens the effect. The goal is not perfection. It is a 5-minute input that shifts the hormonal environment before the sleep window opens. Temperature matters more than most people realize. The body needs to drop core temperature by about 1 to 2 degrees to initiate deep sleep. A room that is too warm keeps the body in shallow sleep, where growth hormone output is minimal. Set the bedroom to 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 19 Celsius. If climate control is limited, a cool shower 60 to 90 minutes before bed achieves the same result through a rebound mechanism. The body heats up briefly during the shower, then overcorrects by dropping core temperature below baseline, which triggers the sleep onset cascade. Supplementation locks the protocol together. Magnesium glycinate at 400 milligrams taken 30 minutes before bed promotes muscle relaxation and supports GABA activity in the brain. The glycinate form is specifically chosen because it crosses the blood-brain barrier and has a calming effect on the nervous system rather than a laxative one. If your pattern includes racing thoughts or an inability to mentally shut down, adding 200 milligrams of L-theanine alongside the magnesium can further reduce neural activity without causing drowsiness the next morning. L-theanine increases alpha brainwave activity, which is the transition state between wakefulness and sleep. Light exposure after sunset is one of the most underestimated disruptors of the overnight fat-burning process. Blue light from phones, laptops, and televisions suppresses melatonin production by up to 50%. Melatonin is not only a sleep initiator, it is also involved in insulin sensitivity and fat metabolism during the night. Suppressing it means both worse sleep and worse metabolic performance overnight. Eliminate screens for at least 30 minutes before bed. If that is not possible, amber-tinted blue light blocking glasses worn after sunset reduce the suppression significantly. Dimming household lights in the evening also helps, as even standard room lighting can suppress melatonin by 30 to 50% compared to dim light. The goal is to send every available signal to the brain that the day is ending, and the hormonal shift towards sleep should begin. This is not about creating a spa environment. It is about removing the inputs that are actively preventing the biological processes you need. There is one additional element that ties the protocol together. A 10 to 15-minute walk after dinner, before the fasting window begins, can blunt the post-meal insulin spike by up to 30%. Walking activates a glucose uptake pathway in muscle cells called GLUT4 that works independently of insulin. In practical terms, walking after eating allows your muscles to clear sugar from the bloodstream without requiring insulin to do the job. This means insulin drops faster, the fasting window effectively starts sooner, and the growth hormone window opens earlier in the night. It is a simple, free, 5-minute addition that amplifies every other part of the protocol. The cumulative effect of this protocol, when followed consistently, is a body that enters deep sleep faster, sustains deep sleep longer, produces a full growth hormone surge, and mobilizes visceral fat for energy overnight. Most men notice the first changes within 7 to 10 days. Less bloating in the morning, fewer middle-of-the-night awakenings, and more energy in the first hours after rising. Visible changes to the gut take longer, typically 4 to 6 weeks, because visceral fat release is a gradual hormonal process, not an overnight event. The first visual change most men notice is the belly appearing flatter in the morning and staying flatter longer into the day. The evening bloating decreases gradually as the body's nighttime fat mobilization becomes consistent. By week 8 to 10, the difference is visible enough that other people begin to comment. But once the nighttime environment is corrected, the body finally has the conditions it needs to do what it could not do before. Your gut was never unresponsive. It was waiting for a hormonal signal that never arrived because the nighttime environment kept blocking it. Now you know how to clear the way. The protocol is simple, the execution is nightly, and the results, once they begin, compound on themselves.